They yanked my hair in front of everyone, strands scattered across the polished hardwood floor, while my aunt's laughter cut through the air. She deserved it. But none of them knew about the camera hidden in my vest button, recording everything the red welts on my scalp and every damning word they confessed. Tonight, they think I'm their walking ATM. Tomorrow night, I'm pulling the circuit breaker property, accounts, the parasitic family, everything goes dark. My name is Harper Reed, and I've been my family's personal ATM for 22 years. Tonight, at Maya's scholarship celebration dinner, they decided to make a withdrawal with interest using my hair as the receipt. The restaurant's private dining room glowed with warm amber light, the kind that's supposed to make everyone look good in photos. Lorraine, my mother, had insisted on this particular venue top floor of the Sterling, Cleveland's newest attempt at Manhattan sophistication. Of course, she'd insisted I pay for it too. Harper, sweetheart, she'd cooed on the phone last week. Maya got into art school full scholarship. We simply must celebrate properly. You understand, don't you? Family supports family. Family supports family. I'd heard that phrase so many times it had worn grooves in my brain, right next to the memory of my first paycheck at 16 gone before I'd even held it, borrowed for Victor's truck repairs. They'd seated me by the service entrance, naturally, close enough to the payment terminal that I wouldn't have to walk far when the check arrived, far enough from the head of the table that I could be ignored until needed. Victor, my stepfather, held court at the center, his booming voice drowning out the soft jazz piping through hidden speakers. Aunt Carol sat to his right, her sharp features animated as she gossiped about neighbors I'd never met. Maya, the guest of honor, looked beautiful in a dress I recognized from Lorraine's credit card statements, the ones that somehow always found their way to my inbox when payment was due. The dinner progressed predictably. Champagne I couldn't afford. Appetizers no one finished. Entrees ordered without checking prices because everyone knew Harper would handle it. I nursed a single glass of water and calculated the damage in my head. 12 guests. Top shelf liquor. The private room fee. $3,000. Minimum. Time for a toast. Victor stood, his face flushed from his fourth bourbon. To Maya, our little artist, and to family, the most important thing in life. Everyone raised their glasses. I lifted my water. The moment came when dessert plates were being cleared. The server, a young woman with sympathetic eyes, approached with the leather check folder. She'd learned, like they all did, to bring it directly to me. I'll take that, I said, sliding my company card from my wallet. The one I'd use and expense as client entertainment, because God knew I entertained these clients more than any business prospect. The server ran the card. The machine beeped that particular sound that makes your stomach drop. I'm sorry, ma'am. The card was declined. The room went silent. That specific silence that precedes family violence. Heavy and electric. What do you mean? Declined. Victor's voice came low and dangerous. It's probably just the strip, I said calmly, though my pulse quickened. I have another. I never finished the sentence. Victor's hand shot across the table, fingers tangling in my hair, yanking my head down until my cheek nearly touched the tablecloth. The pain was immediate, electric, spreading from my scalp down my neck. You embarrass us like this, he hissed, bourbon breath hot against my ear. In public, Lorraine's manicured nails dug into my wrist, her grip deceptively strong. Harper, honey, you really must be more careful with your finances. This is so inconsiderate. And then Carol's laugh, bright and cruel. She deserved it, acting like she's so important with her corporate job, can't even keep a credit card working. My free hand stayed steady, reaching for my backup card while my scalp burned. The tiny camera in my vest button, the one I'd started wearing after the last family emergency that had drained my savings, captured everything. The angle of Victor's grip, the red marks his fingers left, the way other diners turned away, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. Here, I said quietly, producing the second card. This one will work. Victor released me with a shove. Hair came away in his fingers, my hair drifting to the floor like dark snow. The server ran the new card with shaking hands. It went through. See? Lorraine smoothed her napkin, voice sweet again. Everything's fine, just a little misunderstanding. But as I signed the receipt, adding a 40% tip for the traumatized server, I made a decision. My fingers were steady as I tucked both cards away. My voice was calm as I said goodbye to Maya, wished her luck at school. My steps were measured as I walked to the door. Behind me, I heard Victor. That money she throws around, it's family money anyway. We made her who she is. I touched the button on my vest, ensuring it was still recording. 22 years of family support were about to come due, and unlike them, I always paid my debts in full. Back in my apartment, I pulled up the Excel file I'd hidden 3 folders deep, encrypted and password protected, the one I'd named Ledger Family. 22 years of financial abuse, meticulously documented, though I'd only started keeping real records 5 years ago when I'd finally understood the pattern. The first entry was from when I was 12. Lorraine had taken my birthday money from Grandma, $200 meant for a bike. We need groceries, Harper, family helps family. The groceries turned out to be a new purse she'd spotted at Nordstrom. By 14, I had a paper route. Every Friday. Victor would be waiting when I got home. House contribution, he'd call it, taking 70% of my earnings. You eat here, don't you? Use electricity. The other kids at school bought CDs and movie tickets. I watched my money disappear into Victor's wallet, then reappear as beer cans in the recycling. 16 brought my first real job at Target. Direct deposit was supposed to protect my earnings, but Lorraine had made me add her as a joint account holder for emergencies. The emergencies came like clockwork always 3 days after payday. Car repairs that coincided with new rims on Victor's truck, medical bills that matched spa treatment dates, emergency plumbing that cost exactly the same as their Vegas weekend. I scrolled through the spreadsheet, each row a small betrayal adding up to a fortune. College years were the worst. They'd convinced me to take out extra student loans for living expenses, then guilted me into covering their mortgage when Victor got laid off. Except Victor never got laid off. I'd found his pay stubs years later, hidden in a box of Christmas decorations. The pattern was always the same: manufacture a crisis, invoke family loyalty, take the money, then gaslight me when I questioned it. You're so selfish, Harper. We sacrificed everything for you. This family would fall apart without us holding it together. My phone buzzed. A credit alert: someone had just tried to open a new account using my social security number. Declined. Thank God for fraud protection. But this was new. They'd never gone this far before. I pulled up my credit monitoring app, and there it was, a hard inquiry from a payday loan company, dated last week. The same week Lorraine had asked for my driver's license to update her insurance. I'd been suspicious but gave it to her anyway. That old programming still running: family helps family. Another search revealed more. A credit card in my name I'd never opened, maxed out at $5,000. The purchases: jewelry, electronics, a weekend at a resort in Sedona. The billing address: Carol's apartment. My hands shook as I opened my banking app. 3 checking accounts I'd never authorized, all opened in the last 6 months, all with overdraft fees eating away at my credit score. Each one had Victor or Lorraine listed as authorized users. This wasn't just taking my money anymore. They were stealing my identity, piece by piece. I thought about calling the police right then, but I knew how this would play out. Family matter, they'd say. Civil dispute. Without proof of fraud, without documentation, it would be my word against theirs. And they'd been preparing for this longer than I had, with their stories about ungrateful Harper, mentally unstable Harper, Harper who owes us everything. Instead, I opened a new spreadsheet. This one would be different. Not just a record of losses, but a map of their entire operation. Every account, every transaction, every pattern. I pulled up my work laptop and logged into the Kestrel transit systems. The same forensic accounting software I used to trace supply chain finances could track personal money flows. It was time to use my professional skills for personal justice. As I worked, I touched the spot where Victor had pulled my hair. Strands were still coming loose, and my scalp throbbed with each heartbeat. But pain was just information, and information was power. Tomorrow, I'd call Margot Ellison, the attorney who'd presented at our corporate fraud seminar, the one who'd said, "Financial abuse is abuse, period, and identity theft by family members is still identity theft." I uploaded the restaurant video from my button camera to 3 different cloud services. Evidence had a way of disappearing in family conflicts, but not this time. This time, I was building a case they couldn't gaslight away. The spreadsheet grew as I worked through the night. 22 years of payments, transfers, and thefts. By my calculation, they'd taken over $300,000 from me since I was 12, not including interest, not including the opportunities lost, the savings never built, the life never lived. My phone buzzed again at 3:45 a.m. A text from Maya. "I'm sorry about tonight, they don't mean it." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. They mean it. They've always meant it. And after tomorrow, they're going to mean something else entirely: consequences. The Kestrel Transit supply chain software mapped money like blood through veins. I'd spent 5 years perfecting my ability to track vendor payments, catch invoice fraud, and identify shadow transactions. Now I turned those same tools on my family, and what I found made my stomach turn. The pattern emerged slowly at first, like a photo developing in reverse. Bank statements I'd subpoenaed through my fraud protection claim, credit reports going back 7 years. Even social media posts that Lorraine didn't know revealed timestamps and locations that Sedona Trip charged to my stolen card matched perfectly with her Instagram posts about a much-needed retreat. I called in sick to work and met Margot Ellison at her downtown office at 10 a.m. She was exactly as I remembered from the corporate seminar, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with the kind of quiet intensity that made opposing lawyers nervous. "Identity theft, financial fraud, and assault," she said, reviewing my documentation. "The video is particularly damning, but tell me about this pattern you've found." I spread out the printed charts. "It's not random. Look, every major fraud attempt happens exactly 2 weeks before quarterly tax payments. That's when Victor's construction business needs liquidity. The smaller thefts cluster around the first of the month. That's Lorraine's spending cycle. And this," Margot pointed to a series of transactions I'd highlighted in yellow. "That's where it gets interesting. These payments all flow to the same endpoint, a company called Pinnacle Financial Services, registered to my aunt, Carol." Margot's eyebrows rose. "She's running the operation. She's the broker. I tracked 17 different families through social media and public records, all connected to Carol, all reporting similar identity theft issues. She's not just stealing from me. She's running a full identity theft ring, using family relationships as cover." I pulled up another document on my laptop. Here's the beautiful part. Carol charges a finder's fee for connecting people with alternative lending solutions. She takes 30% of whatever money gets extracted. Look at this text she sent Lorraine last month. The message was clear. "Got approval for H's info. 5K available. My cut, Zarg 1.5K. Move fast before she notices." H being Harper, Margot said. It wasn't a question. "The burner phone she used is still active. I've been tracking its location data through a reverse lookup service. She uses it exclusively for these communications." Margot leaned back in her chair. "This is RICO territory, racketeering, federal charges." "There's more." I pulled up the final piece. "Victor's been claiming me as a dependent on his taxes for the last 3 years. I haven't lived with them since I was 18. That's tax fraud on top of everything else." "How did you find all this?" "My job is following money. When companies try to hide supply chain theft, they use the same tactics: shell transactions, false documentation, timing patterns. The only difference is that corporations are usually smarter about it than my family." Margot was quiet for a moment, studying the evidence. "You know, once we file this, there's no going back. This will destroy them. They destroyed me first. They just did it slowly, over decades. One birthday check and one payday at a time. My phone rang. Jake Morrison, my colleague from Risk Assessment who'd been helping me analyze the metadata. "Harper, you need to see this," he said without preamble. "That furniture store contract you sent me, the one with your forged signature." "What about it?" "I ran it through our authentication software. The signature isn't just forged, it's digitally copied from a legitimate document, specifically from your apartment lease. The metadata shows it was created on Victor's laptop. He literally cut and pasted your signature." "Can you prove that in court?" "The metadata doesn't lie. Creation date, device ID, even the software used. It's all embedded in the file." I thanked Jake and turned back to Margot, who was already taking notes. "We'll need to move fast," she said. "Once they realize you're onto them, they'll start destroying evidence. We need a preservation order immediately." "What about criminal charges?" "I have a contact in the DA's office who specializes in identity theft rings. With what you've shown me, they'll be very interested, especially in Carol's operation." As we planned our next steps, my phone buzzed with another credit alert, another attempted breach, this time trying to access my 401k. They were getting desperate, moving faster, making mistakes. "I want to set a trap," I said suddenly. "Something that will make them reveal themselves completely." Margot studied me. "What did you have in mind?" "A fake charity event, for Maya's scholarship fund. Somewhere public, where they'll feel safe and superior, where their greed will override their caution, and where we can have federal agents waiting, where every word they say will be recorded, where their entire network will be present, celebrating what they think is another successful score." Margot smiled for the first time since I'd walked in. "You're not just looking for justice, you're looking for complete annihilation." "They taught me that family supports family," I said, gathering my documents. "They just never specified which family would be left standing when the support finally collapsed." The Sterling's event coordinator was surprised when I walked back in, exactly 1 week after the hair-pulling incident. "I'd like to book the same private dining room," I said, sliding my credit card across her desk. "This Saturday, 7 p.m., for another family gathering." She looked uncomfortable, probably remembering the scene from last week. "A charity auction, actually. The Maya Reed Scholarship Fund. I'll need audio-visual equipment, projection screen, sound system, the works." Money smoothed over her hesitation. I paid in full, up front, and added a substantial tip to ensure everything would be perfect. The invitations went out through Carol's network. I'd created them using her contact list, which Jake had helped me extract from a data breach she didn't know about. Professional cream cardstock, gold, embossing. "You're cordially invited to the Maya Reed Scholarship Fund inaugural gala." The genius was in the details. I'd listed Carol as the honorary chair. Knowing her ego wouldn't let her miss it, Margot had assembled our legal team like a general preparing for war, 3 angles of attack, all synchronized. The civil suit was ready: identity theft, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and assault. The documentation ran to 200 pages, every transaction traced, every pattern mapped. We'd calculated damages at $400,000, plus punitive damages that could triple that amount. The criminal case was building. Detective Sarah Wilson from the Financial Crimes Unit had taken over the investigation. "This is one of the most organized family fraud rings I've seen," she'd told me. "Your aunt's operation has at least 30 victims we've identified so far." The IRS had been notified. 3 years of fraudulent dependent claims, unreported income from Carol's consulting fees, and Victor's hidden cash transactions from his construction business. The penalties alone would bankrupt them. But the masterpiece was the presentation I'd prepared for Saturday night. Every slide was a work of art. Financial records redesigned as infographics. Text messages blown up to billboard size. The video from my button camera edited with timestamps and subtitles. I'd even created a flowchart showing how money moved from victims through Carol's network to my family's accounts. "You sure you want to do this publicly?" Margot asked during our final preparation meeting. They've spent 22 years telling everyone what a burden I am, how ungrateful, how selfish. Let those same people see the truth. The technology was crucial, beyond my vest camera. I'd arranged for professional recording equipment. Every angle would be covered, every word captured. The local news had received an anonymous tip about a major financial fraud revelation at the Sterling on Saturday night. I knew at least one reporter would show up. Jake had built me a remote access system for the presentation. If they try to stop you or destroy the equipment, you can run everything from your phone. The files are backed up to 7 different servers. They can't stop this. Thursday brought a complication. Maya called, crying. Mom says you're trying to destroy the family. She says you've gone crazy, that your job stress has made you paranoid. Maya, have you ever wondered how Mom affords her shopping sprees on a receptionist's salary? She says Dad helps. Victor hasn't worked a legitimate job in 2 years. I've been paying for everything, including your scholarship celebration dinner where he assaulted me. He didn't mean, I have it on video. Maya, would you like to see your mother holding me down while Victor ripped my hair out? Silence. I don't want you to be blindsided Saturday. I continued, you can choose not to come, but if you do come, you'll finally understand why I stopped coming to Christmas 3 years ago, why I changed my locks, why I never gave them my new address. Are you really going to have them arrested? They're going to have themselves arrested. I'm just providing the evidence. Friday. Lorraine tried one last manipulation. She showed up at Kestrel Transit, making a scene in the lobby until security threatened to call the police. How dare you embarrass me at my workplace? She shrieked as security escorted her out. The irony was lost on her. She'd been embarrassing me my entire life, taking credit for my achievements while stealing my resources. Now she was upset about 5 minutes of public discomfort. That night, I sat in my apartment reviewing everything one last time. The presentation was perfect 20 minutes of devastating truth. The legal documents were filed and ready. The federal agents were briefed and would be stationed outside the Sterling, waiting for my signal. My phone had 17 missed calls from family members. I'd blocked them all except Maya. The last voicemail from Victor was predictable. You ungrateful bitch. Everything you have is because of us. We made you. I saved the voicemail and added it to the evidence folder. Then I practiced my opening line one more time in the mirror. Good evening, everyone. I'm Harper Reed, and tonight I'm here to make a significant donation to the Maya Reed Scholarship Fund, the complete and unedited truth about where my family's money really comes from. The trap was set. Tomorrow night, they'd walk into that room expecting another payday. Instead, they'd find the bill for 22 years of theft, fraud, and abuse. And unlike them, I always paid my debts in full. Saturday morning arrived with a text from Maya at 6:15 a.m. Is what you're doing tonight really necessary? Can't we just talk this out like a family? I stared at her message while touching the still tender spot on my scalp where hair had been ripped out. 22 years of talking it out had led to $300,000 stolen and my identity in shambles. I tried talking for 2 decades. Maya, tonight, I'm using a different language, evidence, and consequences. She sent back a crying emoji. Then, Mom showed me medical bills. She says she has lupus. She needs help with treatment. I almost laughed. Lorraine had played the medical card before mysterious illnesses that required immediate cash, but somehow never required actual doctor visits. I pulled up her social media. Yesterday's post, Spa Day Self-Care is Healthcare. Ask her for the name of her rheumatologist. I replied. Ask to see a single prescription bottle. Just one. Maya didn't respond. By noon, the attempted manipulations intensified. Carol called from 3 different numbers before I finally answered. Harper, darling, she purred, voice dripping artificial sweetness. I heard you're organizing something special for Maya tonight. How generous, you know. I've been thinking about that unfortunate misunderstanding at dinner last week. You mean when you laughed while my stepfather assaulted me. Oh, Harper, You always were so dramatic. It was just a little family squabble. No need to blow things out of proportion. Proportion, I repeated. Like the 30% commission you take for selling family members' identities to predatory lenders. Silence. Then, carefully, I don't know what you're talking about. Pinnacle Financial Services, Carol, registered in your name. 17 fraud victims identified so far. The FBI found your burner phone communications. The sweetness evaporated. You little bitch. You have no idea who you're messing with. Actually, I do. A 60-year-old woman facing federal racketeering charges. See you tonight. Aunt Carol. I hung up before she could respond. At 4 p.m., Lorraine made her move. She didn't come alone. She brought Victor's mother, my step-grandmother Helen, who I hadn't seen in 2 years. Helen was 83, walked with a cane, and had always been kind to me. They knew I had a soft spot for her. I met them in the coffee shop across from my apartment building, neutral territory with witnesses. Harper, sweetheart, Helen said, reaching for my hands with her papery ones. Your mother tells me there's been some misunderstanding about money. There's no misunderstanding, I said gently. They've stolen from me for 22 years. But family? Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't open credit cards in relatives' names. Family doesn't assault each other in restaurants. Lorraine pulled out a manila folder, hands trembling with manufactured emotion. Harper, please, look at these bills. The mortgage is behind. We could lose the house. I glanced at the papers. The mortgage statements were real, but the story wasn't. You're behind because Victor spent the mortgage money on his boat. I can see the purchase date right here on his bank statement, the one you accidentally included. Helen looked confused. Boat Victor told me he sold the boat to pay for Lorraine's medical treatment. The truth hung in the air between us. Lorraine's face cycled through emotions, surprise, anger, calculation. Mom Reed, I said to Helen, they've been lying to both of us. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Helen's face hardened as she turned to Lorraine. You told me Harper was mentally unstable, that she was making up stories. She is, Lorraine insisted. She's trying to destroy our family. By telling the truth, Helen stood shakily, gripping her cane. I may be old, but I'm not stupid. Harper, dear, do what you need to do. As Helen walked away, Lorraine's mask finally slipped completely. You ungrateful little parasite, she hissed. After everything we did for you, we took you in when your father left. You mean when you cheated on him and he divorced you, when you got the house and alimony but spent it all on yourself. We fed you, clothed you, with my own money. I've been paying my own way since I was 12. You owe us. She slammed her palm on the table. You owe us for 18 years of raising you. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone. According to my calculations, you owe me $473,000, including interest. But don't worry after tonight. The FBI will help you work out a payment plan. From prison. Victor's voicemail came at 6:45 p.m. as I was putting on my vest with its hidden camera. You think you're so smart, little girl, but you're nothing without us. Nothing we made you who you are. Every success you've had is because we pushed you. You're going to regret this. You're going to be alone, and you're going to realize that family is all you had. I saved that voicemail too. Evidence of threats would be useful for the restraining order. As I headed to the Sterling, one final text came through from Maya. I'll be there tonight, not for Mom or Victor, for the truth. My hands were steady as I walked through the restaurant's front door. The trap wasn't just set. It was about to spring shut with the force of 22 years of suppressed rage. Tonight, they'd learn that family supporting family could work both ways. I'd supported them financially for over 2 decades. Now, I was going to support them all the way to federal prison. The Sterling's private dining room glowed with the same warm amber light as last week, but tonight I'd added touches of my own. Professional backdrop banners reading Maya Reed Scholarship Fund flanked the projection screen. The sound system was tested and ready. Every seat had been deliberately placed for maximum impact. They arrived in clusters, drawn by greed and ego. Carol entered first, wearing a new designer dress probably purchased with someone else's stolen identity. She'd brought her network the Johnsons, whose daughter she'd helped with a loan, the Patels, who'd mysteriously had their credit tank after trusting her with financial advice. Others I recognized from my research. Harper. Carol's voice carried across the room. What a wonderful thing you're doing for Maya. Though I'm surprised you didn't consult me about the guest list. I used your contact database, I said smoothly. I wanted to make sure all your closest associates were here. Her smile flickered with unease. Lorraine and Victor arrived at 7:20 p.m., fashionably late to their own destruction. Lorraine had styled herself like a philanthropist's wife pearls. Conservative dress, hair swept into an elegant chignon. Victor wore his only suit, the one he'd bought with my bonus 3 years ago. Harper. Lorraine air-kissed near my cheek. This is quite the production. I hope you're not spending beyond your means. Don't worry, Mother. Everything's been carefully budgeted. I learned from the best. Local news reporter Jennifer Knox stood near the back, camera operator beside her. She'd received my anonymous tip and supporting documents. Her eyes tracked the room like a hunter. Maya arrived last, at 7:35 p.m., wearing jeans and a simple sweater, refusing to play dress-up for what she knew was coming. She took a seat at the back, away from our parents. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, clicking the presentation remote. Thank you for joining us for what I promise will be an unforgettable evening. The first slide appeared a photo of Maya at her high school graduation. We're here to celebrate Maya Reed and her full scholarship to art school. A remarkable achievement. Polite applause. Lorraine preened. But first, I continued, I'd like to share the story of how this scholarship celebration actually began. Last week, in this very room. Click. The video started playing. The room watched in stunned silence as Victor's hand shot across the table, tangling in my hair. The enhanced audio caught every word, "You embarrass us like this." The camera had perfectly captured Lorraine holding my wrist, Carol laughing. She deserved it. What the hell is this? Victor stood face purpling. Sit down, Victor. My voice was calm. We're just getting started. Click. A financial flowchart filled the screen. This is 22 years of money extracted from one person, me, starting at age 12 with birthday money stolen for groceries. Click. Progressing to teenage paychecks taken for household contributions. Click. Escalating to identity theft and credit fraud. The slide showed bank statements, forged signatures, fraudulent credit applications, each with dates, amounts, and account numbers clearly visible. You can't prove any of this, Lorraine shrieked. Click. Her voice filled the room from a recorded phone call. Harper won't notice the credit card for weeks. She never checks that old email account. Carol tried to leave. This is ridiculous. I'm not sitting here for Pinnacle Financial Services, I said loudly. The name stopped her cold. Your company, Carol, the one you used to broker identity theft. The next slide showed her business registration, followed by text messages, emails, and bank transfers. 30% commission on every fraudulent loan. Names, dates, amounts. The Johnsons gasped. The Patels stood up, faces twisted with rage as they recognized their own names on the victim list. You stole from us. Mrs. Patel's voice shook. We trusted you. I helped you. Carol protested. Those loans were fraudulent. I finished. Opened using stolen information. Information you provided to predatory lenders for a fee. Victor lunged toward the projection equipment. Jake's remote system kicked in seamlessly, even as Victor yanked cords from the wall. The presentation continued on the backup screen I'd had installed. Turn it off! Lorraine screamed. Harper, stop this right now. Click. Their tax returns appeared. 3 years of claiming me as a dependent, collecting credits they weren't entitled to, Victor's hidden cash income, Carol's unreported commissions. The IRS has already been notified, I said. Audit letters go out Monday. Maya stood up from the back. Is this all true? Mom, did you really steal from Harper? She owes us. Lorraine spun toward her younger daughter. Everything she has is despite you, not because of you. I interrupted. Click. My college transcripts, showing the honors I'd earned while working 3 jobs to pay for their lifestyle. My Kestrel Transit offer letter, showing the 6-figure salary they'd been siphoning. Jennifer Knox stepped forward, microphone in hand. Mrs. Reed, would you care to comment on these allegations of systematic fraud? That's when they noticed the others. The couple by the service door FBI agents, the man near the window detective from financial crimes. They'd been there all along, badges hidden, watching everything unfold. Carol made one last desperate play. This is entrapment, you can't… Actually, Detective Sarah Wilson said, stepping forward with handcuffs. We can… Carol Mason, you're under arrest for racketeering, identity theft, and wire fraud. The room erupted. Victor overturned a chair trying to reach the exit, only to find another agent waiting. Lorraine collapsed into theatrical tears, wailing about betrayal and cruelty. Through it all, I stood perfectly still at the podium, remote in hand. 22 years of rage, finally given form and function. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence a monument to patience and meticulous planning. Before anyone leaves, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. There's one more thing. Margot Ellison entered with 2 paralegals, wheeling boxes of documents. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd already won. Mr. Hale, Mrs. Reed, she announced. You've been served. Civil suit for fraud, identity theft, assault, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The amount sought is $400,000 in actual damages, plus punitive damages to be determined at trial. She handed Victor the papers. His hands shook as he read. Additionally, Margot continued, a temporary restraining order is now in effect. You are not to come within 500 feet of Harper Reed. I'd marked the distance with tape on the floor, a bright yellow line exactly 500 feet from where I stood. That's your boundary, I said. Cross it, and you'll be arrested for violation of a court order. Carol was already in handcuffs, but she snarled at me. You think you've won? I have connections. Lawyers. Detective Sarah Wilson, who'd been observing from the corner, stepped forward with an evidence bag. Ms. Mason, your phone contains communications with 43 victims across 6 states. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit has taken particular interest. This is now a federal investigation. The Patels and Johnsons pressed forward, shouting questions at Carol about their own stolen identities. Other guests pulled out phones, checking credit reports, realizing they too might be victims. My credit score dropped 200 points last year, Mr. Johnson said, staring at Carol in horror. You said it was a bank error. Lorraine tried one final manipulation. She stumbled toward me, tears streaming down her face, the same performance she'd given landlords, creditors, anyone she needed something from. Harper, baby, please, I'm your mother. Don't do this to family. I stepped back, maintaining the legal distance. You're right. You are my mother, which makes what you did even worse. Click. The final slide appeared a spreadsheet showing every dollar taken, adjusted for inflation and interest. $473,216. I read, that's what family cost me. But here's what you didn't steal: my education, my career, my ability to rebuild. You thought you were taking from someone weak. You were actually teaching someone to be strong. Victor lunged again, not at the equipment, but at me. The FBI agents moved instantly, taking him down before he crossed the yellow line. As they cuffed him, he screamed, "That money was ours. We raised you. You owe us everything." Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, let me show you what I owe you. I opened my banking app and made a transfer. $1 to Lorraine's account. The memo line, final payment for services rendered as parents. Account closed. The notification pinged on Lorraine's phone immediately. She looked at it, then at me, her mask finally completely shattered. "You vindictive little ma'am," Agent Thompson interrupted. "You'll want to stop talking. Anything you say can and will be used against you." Jennifer Knox's camera had caught everything. "This is unprecedented," she said to her operator. "Family fraud exposed in real time." Maya hadn't moved from her spot, frozen as she watched our family implode. I walked toward her, stopping just short. "I know this is horrible to watch," I said quietly, "but you deserved the truth. They really stole from you all of it, every penny, and they would have stolen from you too, once your scholarship money started coming in." I handed her a business card, not Margot's, but another attorney. "This is Eleanor Martinez. She specializes in educational trust funds. Your scholarship money will be protected in an account they can never touch." "But where will I live if Mom and Victor go to?" "Helen, Victor's mother, has already offered. She called me an hour ago. She's disgusted by what her son became." I paused. "Or there's a second bedroom in my apartment. Your choice. No strings, no manipulation, no emotional invoices." The room was emptying now. Carol, Victor, and Lorraine were being led away separately. The other guests huddled in groups, some calling lawyers, others comparing notes on suspicious financial activities. As the chaos swirled, the restaurant's sound system suddenly crackled. Jake's voice came through the speakers. "Harper, the backup recording to cloud storage is complete. 6 servers, 3 jurisdictions. They can't make this disappear." I smiled, looking directly at Lorraine as the agents guided her toward the door. "Everything you did, everything you said, every confession, it's permanent now. As permanent as the scars you thought I'd carry forever." "I gave you life," she shrieked, the last words before the door closed behind her. The room fell silent except for the hum of recording equipment and the scratch of Jennifer Knox's producer taking notes. I walked to the circuit breaker I'd gotten permission to access earlier, the main power control for the private dining room. My hand rested on the switch. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to the remaining crowd, "the Maya Reed Scholarship Fund event is officially concluded." I pulled the switch. The room plunged into darkness, lit only by emergency exits and the glowing screens of phones documenting the aftermath. In that darkness, I pulled the last strand of torn hair from my vest button, the one piece of evidence I'd kept on my person. I let it fall to the floor, a final offering to the family altar I was walking away from forever. The emergency lights cast strange shadows as I walked through the darkened dining room toward the exit. Behind me, Jennifer Knox was doing a live stand-up for the 11 o'clock news. The headline would be brutal: "Family Fraud Ring Exposed at Fake Charity Event." Maya caught up to me at the revolving door. "Harper, wait." I stopped but didn't turn around. "The money for my scholarship dinner last week, you paid $3,000 just to be humiliated." $3,247, I corrected, plus tip for the traumatized server. "Why," now I turned, "because I wanted you to have one perfect moment before the truth came out. One genuine celebration that wasn't tainted by what was coming." She looked so young standing there, 18 years old with her whole life imploding around her. The same age I'd been when I'd first escaped, only to be pulled back by manufactured crises and emotional manipulation. "I hate you for this," she said quietly. "But I think I understand why you did it." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a USB drive. "This has everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. In 10 years, when you're my age, you might want to know the whole story. Or you might want to burn it. Your choice." Maya took the drive, then surprised me by stepping forward for a hug. Brief, awkward, but real. "Helen's probably better for me right now," she said. "But maybe we can have coffee sometime, when this is all over." "It'll never be all over," I said honestly. "But yeah, coffee sounds good." She walked away, and I pushed through the revolving door into the Cleveland night. The December air bit at my face, sharp and clean. My phone buzzed with notifications, Margot confirming the restraining orders were filed, Jake celebrating the complete data backup, my boss at Kestrel asking if I was okay. I ignored them all and walked to the small park across from the Sterling. The bench was cold metal, but I sat anyway, looking back at the lit windows of the restaurant. Red and blue lights flickered as more police arrived to process the scene. A strand of my hair fell across my face from the patch where Victor had torn it out a week ago. The spot was still tender, would probably be thin for months, but hair grows back. Everything grows back. If you let it. My phone rang. Detective Wilson. Harper, thought you should know Carol just flipped. She's giving us everything in exchange for a plea deal. Your parents are looking at federal charges now. Wire fraud across state lines. How long? If convicted, 3 to 5 for your mother, 5 to 7 for Victor with his priors, Carol might get 2 with cooperation. I did the math. I'd be 39 when Lorraine got out, still young enough to have built a complete life without them. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for the evidence. This case will help dozens of families. I hung up and stood, brushing off my coat. One more thing to do. The electrical panel for the Sterling's exterior lighting was exactly where the building manager had shown me. I'd gotten permission earlier, told him it was for dramatic effect during the presentation. He hadn't asked questions after I'd paid the venue fee in full. I opened the panel and found the main switch, the one that controlled the golden lights spelling out the Sterling 40 feet above street level. The sign that had witnessed my humiliation a week ago and my revenge tonight. I pulled out a marker and wrote on the metal panel, where only maintenance workers would ever see it. Harper Reed was here. She survived. She won. Then I flipped the switch. The golden lights died instantly, leaving only darkness where the name had been. The building looked different without its crown, anonymous and forgettable. Just another structure in a city full of them. I walked back through the park toward my car, each step taking me further from the family I'd finally cut loose. My reflection caught in a darkened storefront, hair slightly messed, makeup smudged, but standing straight, no longer bent under the weight of other people's greed. At my car, I found one last thing, a parking ticket tucked under the windshield wiper. $35 for an expired meter. I laughed, actually laughed, at the beautiful simplicity of it. A debt with a clear amount, a due date, no emotional manipulation attached. I got in the car and drove home through empty streets. Tomorrow, there would be paperwork, lawyer meetings, probably more threats and tears and attempts at manipulation. But tonight, for the first time in 22 years, the only person I owed was myself. The circuit breaker had been pulled, the power was cut, and in that darkness, finally, I was free. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I saw it a single light in my window, the lamp I'd left on, in the home I'd paid for, with money I'd earned, in a life they could never touch again. I turned off the engine and sat in the quiet for a moment, my hand unconsciously reaching for the spot where my hair had been torn. The strands were gone, fallen on a restaurant floor, swept up with the debris of my former life. But I was still here, still whole, still standing, and that was enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives make this community special. Until next time, stay strong and remember you deserve respect, especially from those who claim to love you.